Hi, and welcome along to AFTV Daily News, where we try to bring you up to date with everything that is happening right now in this chaotic time that we are living in. Of course, there's a new word that we've all learned recently, and that's called coronavirus, which has literally taken over our lives right now. And I say it every time I come on there, I just can't believe it. I mean, it's unprecedented, it's unbelievable. No sports on TV, no football, no nothing. And it's not getting any better at the moment. It seems to be getting worse and worse every day we move on. But it's all about trying to defeat this horrible virus that is about right now. And the latest measure to be taken has come from from UEFA and the Euros that were set to take place in the summer of this year. Euro 2020 has been postponed. Officially has been postponed by 1 year. It's going to take place in 2021. That's if we've got rid of this corona pandemic. But UEFA said it's going to take place next year now instead of this year. And they had this emergency meeting that took place today where basically all of the governing bodies spoke to each other via a video call, and they came to the decision that this is the best thing to do. And I think it's definitely the most sensible thing to do. There's no way I think we could have had the Euros and even contemplate finishing the Premier League season. But the Euros are definitely going to be cancelled. And UEFA, in their statement, went on to say that it wanted to avoid placing any unnecessary pressure on national public places of the 12 host countries, as well as helping to allow domestic competitions to be finished. And that's the really important point there. Of course, the Euros, for the first time, and it's kind of unique, it's kind of ironic, should I say, that for the first time when they were going to play it in various different countries and spread it all around Europe, this is the one that has been affected by the coronavirus. And of course, at the moment, you know, us over here in the UK, we're not even going to be able to travel anywhere. People in Italy can't travel, Spain. Basically, Europe is shut down right now. You can't travel anywhere. So ironic that the first time they're going to have it in various different places, it can't take place. But the interesting thing, as I said there, in that statement, is that they said to allow the various competitions and leagues to be able to finish their season. So obviously the thinking of it is that by suspending the Euros, that means you can extend out the time that the seasons are going to finish. Because remember, the Premier League season was going to actually finish a little bit earlier than normal in May. Normally finishes at the end of May. We're going to finish a couple of weeks into May because of the Euros, to give time for teams to prepare for the Euros. Now that is not going to be happening, can we finish the Premier League season? That is going to be the real interesting thing to find out. And at this moment in time, of course, absolutely nobody can answer that question. Nobody can answer that question right now. But there's a possibility. By doing this, there is a possibility that the season could be completed. And I think the steps that have been taken today were very sensible and the right thing to do. But can we finish the season? Of course, where we are, we're in March, middle of March, call it April, May. That's when the season was going to finish. So 2.5 months. The way things are going with this crisis at the moment, I heard a doctor yesterday speaking, government doctor, saying that we're looking at like 12 weeks. He was talking like from yesterday before we start to even see this thing calming down. So even if we said to complete the season in July, that might be a bit too optimistic. That might be a bit too optimistic to get it done that quickly. Could we stretch it out till August and then start next season late? But then if we start next season late, you still got to play the Euros at the end of the season. It's so many different things to be taken into account. I mean, a friend of mine was suggesting today that we scrap all of the cup competitions for next year. So we scrap the FA Cup, we scrap the League Cup, but the sponsors ain't going to be happy about that. The FA, that's their competition, the FA Cup. They're not going to be happy about that if the competition's scrapped. And there's a lot of sort of clubs lower down the pyramid that rely on the FA Cup. They rely on the income that they get from the FA Cup. We're looking at a lot of these things from the Premier League's point of view and from Arsenal's point of view, or whatever your team you support, Liverpool, Man United. But what about these teams that are lower down the pyramid that rely on the money that comes in from an FA Cup or from a League Cup? And then you've got to even look at the Euros, right? There's a lot of countries that rely on the income that comes from these European competitions. It's not so much over here because we've got the Premier League, etc. But there's a lot of smaller nations. They rely on that money. And they want the Euros to take place. And they're going to get big losses by, it not taking place now. So it's still really, really uncertain. But could the league still be on? And I want you guys as well to suggest to me, I know we're going out live right now, suggest to me how we could complete the league. How could we complete the league in a short space of time? I think if there was a chance, let's just say, for instance, they said, right, you can play it in July or you can play it in August. I think we could complete the league in 1 month. It would be a stretch. And again, I was discussing it with my mate today, and he was saying, no way could you do that, Robbie. How could you do it? The players would be fatigued. And I said, well, hold on a minute. How comes over the Christmas period we played so many games? And this is an extraordinary circumstance. It would just have to be the same sort of thing where you just squash a load of games into a month, try and complete them, and then whoever wins the league, we know Liverpool are going to win the league. They go on and win the league, but we'd be able to find out who's the top four, find out who's relegated, find out who's comes up if we squash all of those games into a 1 month period. That to me is the only way, or 1 month or 6 weeks, but we'd have to play a lot of games back to back, just like we did because we did it over Christmas, didn't we? We were playing a game on, Boxing Day, then a few days later we were playing another game on New Year's, and just before Christmas we played a game. So why couldn't we squash those 10 games in to that period? It wouldn't be ideal, but this is not an ideal situation. This is a situation where, drastic action is required. So I'd love to get your views on it. Let me get a couple of comments. Babylon Don 204 says, the greed of the league and some fans. If Disneyland is closed, no football, period. I think it's a bit deeper than that. Listen, you can say they're being greedy, but there's a lot of people's livelihoods at stake. We're just thinking about the Premier League. We're just thinking about the big clubs. And yes, those clubs, they've got players that are on big contracts. They're all right. They're cool. The only thing they're feeling at the moment is they're not able to play football. But what about a lot of other teams? What about the staff even at some of these Premier League teams? The tea lady, the people who work in the canteen, the lesser jobs. They could be out of a job. So, what about the amount of money that all of these teams will lose from not having, or from breaching their TV contracts? We've got to try and get the season on if we possibly can. And it would be so much better to conclude it rather than just saying it's void. I mean, I still can't see how at the moment we're going to get the season completed. I still think it's going to be really, really tough thing to do. But if there's any possibility, then why not? No Surrender 786 says, if they void the season, it's not fair on Liverpool. It wouldn't be fair on Liverpool, but it's nobody's fault, is it? It's not that people are trying to deliberately do this. It's the time that we're living in right now. It's extraordinary, you know what I mean? So it would be really tough on Liverpool. And that's why if we can get it done at all, then that would be, great to complete the season. Shabro there says, if we try to complete it, there will be a lot of difficulty. I say just scrap it and start from new. AFTV needs to, Fizz113 says, AFTV needs to step up to the plate and show Blood Brothers live. Well, listen, we can't be playing football either right now, but there is going to be, some couple of packages from Blood Brothers coming out over this period, so look out for that. Dana Minor says, if the Championship can play Tuesdays and Saturdays, why can't the Premier League? The Champions League is cancelled, so you don't have to worry about that. Well, actually, they're talking about, with the Champions League and the Europa League, doing that in a tournament fashion. So maybe condensing those games into, again, just a short period. Now, listen, it's going to be difficult. It will be very tiring for players, but you know what? They're getting a lot of time off at the moment, aren't they? It's going to be difficult. Teams will have to use their full squad. It's not going to be ideal, but what other choice would we have? It's either void it or try and get it on. Haunted Radio says, Robbie, as a United fan, I want the season to be completed. Don't want to be in the Europa League with you lot. I don't want to be in the Europa League either. And I would love to see the season completed. And wouldn't it be a great tonic if we could get through this really horrible period of the coronavirus and then have football at the end of it? I think people will come back in their droves. I think people would be so in love with football again, because when you go to football week in, week out, and you kind of take it for granted, but now that we're not going to have no football for a few months, we're going to really love it when it comes back. We're going to really, really appreciate it. We might even appreciate things like VAR and Mike Dean. But on a serious note, I'd love to see it completed, although it's going to be really, really difficult. Black Boy Vibe says, I think we should play all of the remaining matches. Danny Barry says, they're pros. They can handle 10 games in a month and a half. Rami says, greetings from Singapore. Oh, your message disappeared there. Chalky White says, hello, Robbie. Keep up the good work. Bajano says, how will the Premier League return on July or August if players like Willian and Vertonghen contracts have expired on July the 1st? I don't think it will work. That's a great point that he brings up there. Again, in my little sort of planning, right, I thought about that. And I did see actually a hint of this in some people suggesting this, some journalists, that maybe what they could do is extend. There could be an automatic extension of everybody's contracts until the season's completed. So your contract's up in July, but because of the exceptional circumstances, your contract remains in effect until effectively the season is finished. Stylo says, right? Now, this is a novel way to keep Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and maybe we should suggest this to Aubameyang. He says, we should pay Aubameyang 200,000 toilet rolls a week. I like that one. Love that. That's good, right? On the Aubameyang thing, actually, I was going to touch on that. Let me touch on that right now. On Aubameyang, it was interesting that Bernd Leno was doing an interview, and he was asked about Aubameyang. And the question was put to him, do you think that, Aubameyang is going to stay? He was asked this on an esports channel. And they were sort of asking him whether they think that Arsenal are going to sign any players this summer. And Leno, this is what he replied. He said, I'm not sure. It depends on who's going to leave and who stays. I really don't know. I think it depends on Oba, if he wants to sign a new deal or if he leaves. I don't know what they're going to do. But if he leaves, of course, you need another player. But I think he's going to stay. So that was quite encouraging coming from Bernd Leno there. He thinks that Aubameyang's going to stay. And will the fact with this coronavirus and the whole fact that the chaos and that mean that there's going to be less clubs spending big money come the summer, even if there is any sort of time for a transfer window, but there's going to be less teams with lots of money splashing around. I can see a very, very small transfer window, and that might encourage Aubameyang to stay on in the UK and stay on at Arsenal. Got a super chat here from Mr. Glenn Johnson. He says, if you void the season, it's unfair on some clubs. If you end the season with the current standing, it's unfair on others. We have to complete it later. Well, there has to be, I think, there has to be some sort of time scale for the completion, because we can't just keep it going on for forever and ever. You know what I mean? There's going to have to be some sort of cut-off point when they say, right, you know what, we can't complete the season is void, or we give Liverpool the title, or whatever they decide to do. But there has to be a cut-off point. For me personally, I think that cut-off point should probably be August, because you could play the season possibly in August and then start it a few weeks after that in September, because you know at the start of September they normally have a couple of international games. You could move those games, and then you could give the players, let's say, a 2-3 week break, and then go again with the start of the season. But I think if it's not completed by August, then you got to say scrap it and just the season's void. And I know Liverpool fans ain't going to want to hear that, and I know Leeds fans ain't going to want to hear that. But what else could you do? I mean, they're trying everything they can at the moment to try and complete it. We've got to give them their respect for that. But if it can't be done, it can't be done. Matt Devereaux says, this is the worst period since the war. We have to come together. And I agree with Matt. And we got to come together. I mean, it's terrible at the moment. You know, friend of mine I was chatting to today, his missus has got a few of the symptoms. Now all of his family are in lockdown for the next 2 weeks. It's horrible. It really is. But I think we can get through this. I think we can defeat this virus. You know, we can defeat this virus, but we do all have to stay together. We've got to look after each other. Got to really look out for a lot of the older people in our communities, because you've seen that, you know, over here in the UK, government saying to people over 70, don't go out at all. How do they get food? How do they, you know, look out for anybody that's in your community in that situation. We got to make sure we look after these people because we're all in this together. That's the one thing about this coronavirus. It doesn't respect who you are. You saw Mikel Arteta getting it. Doesn't matter if you're a manager of a football club. Doesn't matter if you're a dignitary. I think it was the Prime Minister or President of Canada. His missus got it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate. Anybody can get this. We've got to stick together on this. No blame game. Stick together. Fizz113 says, thanks for the super chat. He says, while the season is dead, play troops versus DT challenges. Loser gets a ham roll, winner gets a ham roll. Thanks for that suggestion. We are coming up with a lot of great content that you're going to see coming up over the next few weeks. Listen, we're going to try with some of that to be cheering people up. I know there's so much doom and gloom out there at the moment. So, you know, let's try, because we're going to be in a lot. And there's only so much Netflix you can watch. I think I'll watch nearly everything now. You know what I mean? If it's nearly all completed. Let's get into a few more here. It's this one. Joey AFC Largy says, can't they just finish the league on FIFA? Okay, all right. And somebody else suggested this to me the other day. Can't they just finish the league on FIFA and pick players from each team and each club? Listen, it's got to be done on the pitch. There are a lot of, you know, sponsors involved in football, and there are a lot of people going to lose a lot of money anyway. But, you know, it's all about trying to complete it. And I think it would be a good feel-good factor as well if we were able to complete the season and get football back on. It's going to be just a sort of tonic we're going to need when we get through this. And we will get through this. Mikan Rivera says, postpone the season for a year from now. 1 season, 2 years, a long pre-season to get the players fit. And for the transfer window, much love from San Antonio in Texas. Big up to you guys. I know you guys have got it bad out there, like we've got it here. On what he just said there as well, remember, and my friend Khalid from Dubai, we were talking about this yesterday, and he was suggesting this, and he was saying that, remember, you've got the World Cup that's going to be taking place in Qatar, where the season's going to be broken into 2 bits, isn't it? So remember, they're going to start the league off, then they're going to have that break around about the Christmas time to play the World Cup. Then after that, they're going to come back and finish the season. Let's do it early. That's what my friend Khalid was saying. He goes, now that with the circumstances that are here, we do something similar for next season, you know, because that's coming the season after anyway. And good suggestion by him. Another good suggestion. And I really want you guys to put down your suggestions for completing the season. How could we complete the season? Is it possible to do it? I really, really like to hear from you. Or is it impossible? Do we just make it void? Mr. Glenn Johnson again with another super chat. He says, do you think it's strange that the FA missed a legal paragraph that describes the outcome if the season gets interrupted by crisis situations? I think this is a massive error here. I mean, nobody can predict something like a coronavirus, obviously, but you've got to have some sort of contingency for these things. Suppose there was a war on and the league had to just finish, you know, so I think there should have been some contingency for this. There isn't, and hence the situation we're in right now. Killer Boy said the best solution would be to end on the current standing and no regulation for next season. Regulate more teams to take up the difference. I'm a little bit confused by that. Christos. Oh, I missed Christos's one there. Sorry. Abdi says he's suggesting playing them all behind closed doors. I don't like that idea. Kafal O'Leary says Robbie is Matteo Guendouzi leaving. Not as far as I know. There's been a lot of talk about him clashing with Mikel Arteta, but you know, I don't think he's a valuable player in the squad. Vedant Doobie says love from India. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much for that. Unknown Dilla says, what about the transfer windows? Who knows what's going to happen with that? Let's just do a couple more. There's so many coming in the comments, and I really want to thank you guys. Listen, I know the situation at the moment. I know the circumstances. So this is why we're going to do these daily, you know what I mean, to try and give you an update on what's going on and find out how you guys are feeling out there as well. Leon Dyer says, Robbie, we've got to get the games played. So if it's behind closed doors, it's worth it. There's behind closed doors is horrible. And plus as well, behind closed doors, the players are still, you know, you still got the players, you still got their staff, you still got their families, you still, you know, it's everybody getting it, remember. So it doesn't just mean because it's behind closed doors, you know. And I don't like behind closed doors. It's just no atmosphere, nothing. Joey AFC largely says Manchester City should still be banned from the Champions League, whatever happens still. Well, I'm sure their ban's not just going to get rescinded because of this virus. The Adventurous Scorpio says, Robbie, since there's no football, so how about a FIFA tournament consisting from people from AFTV? Much love from Nepal. Thank you very much for that. Good idea. Good idea. We'll have to think about that one. Someone's suggesting we should do a 5-a-side. That's still a gathering. Right? That's a gathering of 5 people. And let me get one more here. Nonso Anselm says, Robbie, please, I don't want Reece Nelson gone in the summer. Arsenal should not repeat the Serge Gnabry. The guy's a prospect. I agree with that. It's going to be, again, what's going to happen with who goes in and who goes out throughout the summer. I said it again at the start of the show. It's unprecedented. Who knows? We just don't know at the moment. So anyway, the headline news is, of course, the Euros have been postponed. The Euros now are going to take place. They were supposed to be Euro 2020. They're now going to be Euro 2021. They will take place next year. It does cause problems because the women's Euros were supposed to take place next year. What happens with that? There's also the under-21 tournament was supposed to take place. So it really just congests things. But the Euros will be taking place across all those 12 nations, not this year, but next year. That will possibly give the leagues time to finish off this season. Hopefully they can do that. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, it's all going to depend on how much worse or better the coronavirus gets right across Europe. And then also the news that Bernd Leno is saying that, suggesting that he thinks Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is going to stay. Hopefully that is true, and that would be some great news. Thanks for watching the show. Keep subscribing here to AFTV. We're going to be here every day, especially as this coronavirus rages. And we'll be keeping you updated with things that are going on. Remember, if you've got people out there in your family, make sure you look after everybody. Take care of people in your community and your neighbors. This is a time for all of us to look out for each and every one, because it doesn't discriminate. But we will beat this. I'm telling you, we're going to beat this. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow.